The Owl House is not my favorite show. I have problems with how the dialogue is written, and I would just like to give as an example episode 1, in which the fact that Luz is weird and quirky is pointed out by every single episode throughout the runtime, with every character portrayed in a negative light, saying it as an insult, while every character portrayed in a positive light, saying it as praise, wearing it kinda like a badge of honor. And it's just so hammered in and so ham-fisted. That style of writing is just so unsubtle. And it just bothers me, if I'm being honest. I appreciate way more when shows dare to be more implicit rather than explicit, or be able to convey information in a more subtle way, trusting that you would get it, rather than just slap you over the face with obvious dialogue. I would have also very much appreciated if the conflict was more complex. The conflict in this episode was very much, if you're wacky and weird, you're good, and if you're against that, you're bad. That's not too nuanced, and it just didn't click with me on most levels, I would say. And that is only one of my criticisms of the show. However, on the other hand, I really love Amity. She starts out as somewhat of a stereotypical mean girl by bullying Willow, which is a little funny because when Willow is alone, we see that she's very strong actually. But that's a whole different subject if I ever talk about Willow in a video. Later in the same episode, Amity is actually being mean and very aggressive towards Willow and Luz again. However, even in this episode, you can see why she feels the way she does, at least to some extent. Because in this episode, Willow kinda cheats. Luz masks herself as an abomination, helping Willow win a competition, making Willow quote-unquote a better student than Amity, which we see from this episode she really values being the top student. However, Willow winning, and especially by cheating, makes Amity's conflict, makes her struggle, makes her point of view make sense, even though, yeah, she is still aggressive and pretty much a bully to Willow. And that's what I appreciate about her. She's not just a stereotypical bully in this episode. At the end of the day, it's still based on a principle. Now, is this principle fueled by her superiority complex, which everyone knows superiority complex come from inferiority complex? Yes, it is. But that just makes her more interesting.
Not so fast! I'm not letting you get away so easily. I want my badge! Abominations! Seize!
In her next appearance, only 2 episodes later, she's in a conflict with Luz this time, as opposed to Willow. And you can see her superiority complex coming back into play when she's telling Luz that she can't be a witch. They eventually end up in a witches duel where Eda helps Luz cheat against Amity, while Lilith, who's Eda's sister, and there's a whole plot point with them, I'm not gonna get into it, helps Amity cheat. However, without Amity's consent. She does not even know that she's cheating. Now, cheating without knowing that you're cheating portrays her in a non-negative light, meaning that even though she was doing a bad act, she's absolved of the consequences as it wasn't her decision. She didn't have any agency in the action. So when she runs off and has a conversation with Luz after, feeling vulnerable and being sad, we don't necessarily understand the totality of her character, but we kind of feel bad for her in a way. It was specifically written in a way where she is the antagonist of the episode, but also can draw some sympathy from the viewer. And during this conversation, Amity says that humans can't be witches. However, she doesn't think that will stop Luz. That line is important because it means she is praising Luz while maintaining her beliefs. But those two things are in conflict with each other, meaning that she's opening up to her beliefs and preconceptions to be challenged. When two confronting opinions from the same person clash, the person either has to go deeper into an echo chamber or change their beliefs. And as we see from Amity throughout the series, she is changing her beliefs. By the next appearance, she's already portrayed in a alright, positive light, as the first thing we see from her is that she's reading books to children, which is the most cookie-cutter, good guy type of activity that has ever been conceived. And in this episode, the show actually does something very interesting, because it introduces her siblings as minor antagonists. And let me give you an example. You know how sometimes in a show you would have a villain, but the villain actually ends up being just a small villain compared to the big bad, and by comparison, he seems to be less threatening and less bad, less evil, and eventually he even turns good? Well, that trope is kinda used here, but on a way smaller scale. The show basically makes us empathize and sympathize with Amity because of the way her siblings are treating her and just the way they're acting throughout the whole episode. And at the same time, throughout the episode, it's also using the twins as a way to kinda corrupt Luz into doing bad stuff. It's nothing outrageous, but she's getting more and more pressured into doing bad stuff until eventually she's put in a situation where she's actually the bad guy and Amity is the victim, to the point where Amity calls Luz a bully, which, I mean, this in her like third or fourth appearance, she's already reversed. She's Uno reversed the cards on the main character, and this dynamic is amazing. This development is unexpected, subversive, and it's just what I love about Amity. And in a show that was, no offense, pretty predictable, or at least it was for me, I think this is the best thing the show has ever done. Amity's character and the way they handled her development. And to show why Amity is actually different, let's take a look at Zuko. Yes, Zuko is portrayed as a little sympathetic from his second appearance. However, it takes until episode 12 for him to get full sympathy and a full backstory. Then after that, it takes us till the end of season 1 for him to leave the bad guy's side and be a neutral party. And then at the end of season 2, he turns bad. And then again, midway season 3, he finally turns good. That's quite a journey. That's a lot of time devoted to his character arc, which is great, but what I'm pointing out is that it took him a while. Let's look at Peridot, for example. Peridot is all similar to Zuko in that regard, except she doesn't start out as sympathetic, she just starts out as a cold killer. And she eventually changes throughout the show, and after a 5 or 6 episodes character arc, she almost turns bad just to swerve us and turn good. That's just a smaller scale version of what Zuko did. However, even though I love both of those character arcs, both of those quote-unquote redemption arcs, better than anything in the Owl House, I'm gonna be honest. The fact that Amity's is handled so much differently, and she from the start, from the very few appearances she had at first, from her third appearance in the show, she already is portrayed in a positive light, she already is sympathetic, she already has subverted expectations. That's what makes me like her so much. That's what makes me like her character so much. It is different. By her next appearance, she is already kind of a friend to Luz. She's portrayed in a positive light. She is altruistic. She tries to save Luz. She tries to save everyone. Again, Luz does something to her that is wrong. Luz is in the wrong in this conflict, in this situation. By this episode, it's over. She is already not only part of the crew, more or less, she is already a good guy.
Are you ready?
You asked for this.
I am the Good Witch Luz, the mightiest tree in the forest. This is Eda the Owl Lady.
I am an agent of chaos. Watch and learn. Magic, magic, magic,
Magic.
magic, magic.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, let's go!
Magic,
Magic.
magic,
Magic.
magic, magic.
The Owl House, new episode next Saturday morning at 10, only on Disney Channel.
This is the episode where Amity almost destroys Willow's brain by burning her memories. So she works with Luz to fix her mistake. When you think about it, the events of this episode were a threat to Lumity. Yes, Luz is a very forgiving person, but I think permanently destroying her friend's mind would be a bridge too far. I don't think Luz would have been able to forgive Amity if she didn't also save Willow in the end. This episode is called Understanding Willow, and it's obviously used as a way to develop Willow, and unfortunately it's the only one that really does, in my opinion. As the show went on, Willow and Gus have become less focused, and outside of like 1 or 2 episodes centering around them, they have very much become disappointing from a character perspective. The rant aside, because it's for another day, this episode is also a way of understanding Amity, fittingly enough, as we see her past relationship with Willow being put to an end due to her parents forcing her. Her relationship with her parents also recontextualizes her dynamic with her siblings and with Luz from the previous episodes and in the future episodes of Season 2. Amity bullying Willow and allowing Basha to do as well makes sense when you understand that those actions are completely fueled by the thought process her parents instituted into her mind at a young age, as well as her dislike for Luz and her conflict with acknowledging Luz's abilities and worth as a person, with the rigid ideology of her parents that not only are some witches intrinsically lesser than, but humans definitely, because they aren't even witches. By the end of the episode, Amity is confronted by Willow's subconscious, and eventually she reveals how her parents forced her to burn the bridge between the two. They don't leave the situation with the bridge being rebuilt, but in a reconstruction phase. And as the series goes on, they will grow closer and closer and rebuild that bridge completely. Speaking of getting closer, the next big episodes involving Amity are about her relationship with Luz. And for example, in the Grom episode, it's revealed that she has a crush on her. Most people find it interesting because it's gay or whatever, but to me what's more interesting is how her view of humans has changed from, oh, you are below me, reminiscent of some sort of racial superiority, to actually recognizing how great a human can be, and further some, developing romantic feelings for said human. Given that, as far as I remember, there's no real signs of homophobia in the Boiling Isles, it's more fair to assume that the human-witch dynamic was perhaps the biggest worry, fear, or I guess social expectation, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to what prohibited Amity, to be blunt, about Luz. What prohibited her from asking Luz out. other than, just the typical embarrassment and awkwardness of asking someone out in general. In season 2, Amity is finally forced to confront her parents when they get Luz and the gang expelled out of Hexside in order to separate them from Amity. Luz makes a deal with Odalia in order for them to be able to get back into school again. And right as Luz is about to get killed by the deal or by actions of the deal, Amity steps up, confronts her mother, and saves Luz, sparking Luz to have a crush on her in the process. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest and most important moments in her development, because this is the first time she confronts and defies her mother almost entirely, and defines her boundaries and the fact that she's not going to be bullied or abused by her mother verbally. I mean, I don't know if it ever got physical, but she will not let her mother defy her anymore. From now on, she's 100% in the group, and most episodes she appears in have to do with her relationship with Luz and how eventually they end up together, which is not necessarily something I'm invested in or something I'm invested in talking about in a video as much, so I'm not gonna concentrate on that. And she does have a few more moments of defiance from her mother and reconciliation with her father, and that's also pretty good to her development. But the last episode that I find interesting when it comes to her character is Eclipse Lake. In this episode, she has a lot of screen time with Hunter, who is in a similar position she was towards the start of the series. They both have internal struggles and question the ideology they have been raised into by interacting with people that defy their preconceptions. They also both struggle with the idea that the roles on the bowling aisles are predetermined, with Amity being proved wrong by Willow and Luz, while Hunter being proved wrong by all of them alongside himself, who can't even use magic naturally. All of that alongside the fact that they're both battling with their parental figures and question if the affection they're receiving is genuine, as well as their authority, and if they truly know best. The show knows they are similar, and it even kind of points it out with Amity trying to relate to Hunter, however, failing, which disappoints her because being nice is something that usually works for Luz. At the end of their fight, which is pretty good by the way, Hunter threatens Luz, so Amity gives him what he needed, which is an insane development from episode 1 Amity, or I guess it would be like episode 3 Amity, but you get what I'm saying. There are more things to say about her, but I think I'm gonna stop here. I think she's obviously the most well-written character in the series, and I don't even think it's close, if I'm being honest. But hey, that's just my opinion, I guess. But this was me kind of pointing out the why I think that Amity is not only the best character in the Owl House, but the best thing in the Owl House.